Hello, welcome to another edition of the Westminster News podcast. Michael Heaver here with a very special guest. It's Inaya Folarin Iman. Inaya, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Well, you've been a busy lady because you've just launched the Econo Project, and I believe you held your first event yesterday. Could you just tell people a little bit about it?
Yeah, so first, thank you for inviting me. And basically, the Econo Project is a new debate, discussion, and ideas forum. I'm hoping to, fundamentally redirect the narrative about race in this country for a number of years now, but particularly in the last few months since the emergence of the kind of Black Lives Matter protest, we've seen a very kind of divisive, conflict-driven idea about race relations in Britain. It's been, white privilege versus Black victimhood. It's been very angry, very negative. And not only that, we've seen absolutely not a single solution meaningfully be proposed to improve the lives of anyone, let alone Black people. And I think that this narrative has become increasingly divisive and is potentially setting race relations back in this country. And so my organization, the Econo Project, is a response to that. One, I'm promoting freedom of speech in the debate. I think if we are going to deal with difficult issues, we need to be able to have difficult conversations freely and openly. But we fundamentally believe in the tradition of Martin Luther King, which is the content of your character, not the color of your skin. And so, yeah, we held our first event on the 4th of August, and that was amazing. It went fantastic. We had Trevor Phillips, the pioneering kind of broadcaster and writer. We had Catherine Burblesing, who is a kind of education reformer, a woman called Aisha Akambi, Helen Pluckrose, many people that are from a range of backgrounds and heritages who don't agree with the way in which we've been discussing race and the kind of things that have been proposed from there. So far it's been a huge success, and we're hoping to really change things in this conversation.
Now, I know the event was, you had a lot of attention on it. I believe it sold out sort of online. What was sort of the sentiment of what was being said yesterday? Were there a range of views? What was sort of the main messages that were coming across in that first event?
Yeah, we were. I was completely astonished. Within a few hours, less than a day, the entire event sold out, and I think that was very telling that a lot of people want change in the way that things are going. But what was really interesting about the event, everyone came from different perspectives. As I said, we had someone from education, someone from academia, someone from the arts, someone from media, all these different angles. But everyone pretty much agreed that one, what's going on right now is not okay. It's very negative, actually. The second thing was that actually Britain is a great place to live. It is one of the best places, regardless of your background, and there's so much to love and be grateful for in this country. And there's a lot about Britain worth fighting for. And actually, in order to heal our divisions in society, we don't need so much negativity and conflict, and it's very exhausting and depressing for a lot of people. What we need is truth, honesty, upliftment, and a positive vision for the future. So that was what I'd say was the kind of unifying message of the event.
Sounds good to me. As I say, you've been a busy lady lately. I know you wrote in the Daily Mail, and a particular paragraph I want to pick out now. You said, the reality is that the hysteria fostered by Black Lives Matter has not only shattered the bonds of mutual trust in Britain, it's created a climate of fear where traditional British liberties are now under unprecedented threat. Do you think what we've seen over the past few months has set race relations back in this country?
Yeah, it's really sad to say, but I actually do think it has, for a number of reasons. One, I think it's very demoralizing and depressing to say to a whole generation of young Black kids who are growing up in a society that's made leaps and bounds when it comes to race relations, basically saying that the society is structured against you, it is, the cards are stacked against you, everyone is kind of, teething with racism. I think that that's a very disempowering message. So I think that that's bad for Black children, but I also think it's very negative to tell a lot of white people who have, worked very hard, who have never felt privileged, and have genuinely not come from privilege, that they are innately privileged and to some extent an oppressor because of their race. For me, that is racism. And so that is a recipe, as I wrote in the article, for, I think, a culture of suspicion where people can't actually say their opinion and don't think that we should be kind of not discriminating. We're being told that actually we should be judging by race and we should be treating people differently based off of race. That is not a recipe for social cohesion, in my opinion.
Now, we constantly hear, we get this constant diet of negativity about this country. We hear of terms like systemic racism and institutional racism. Where do you think that that idea that some obviously strongly believe, you know, some that are out marching strongly believe that this is a massively racist country and they're held back and discriminated against because of the colour of their skin? I mean, why do you think that's being so strongly held? And do you think that there is some legitimate points to racism in Britain? I mean, we know there is racism in Britain, but do you think that some of the points being made are valid or not?
So it's at the point now where no, I don't actually believe the points are valid, because I think that you can take one thing like the existence of racism and what they're doing has turned it into something completely different, something that actually threatens social cohesion. So I'm not sure that I do believe they have a point. Absolutely, there's racism, but okay, what are we comparing it to? Are we comparing it to this, you know, utopian vision where everyone's basically holding hands, or are we comparing it to the reality of societies across the world? I would say that Britain, far more than almost any other country in the world, has done so much to try and, you know, have laws that to protect people against discrimination, you know, to kind of champion a positive vision of kind of our diverse society. That does not look like a racist society to me. And, you know, we've had so many protests, and basically our entire country has basically gone on their knees saying, oh, you know, we're not racist. That doesn't sound like a country that is racist. I've lived in other parts of the world, and if you say, oh, you know, you're discriminating against me, they'll completely laugh in your face. So this idea that Britain, you know, is a racist society, to me, is not true. Of course there are racists, but the extent to which they have political power is almost non-existent. You know, look at the BNP. They have no representation in mainstream politics in this country. You know, racism is very taboo. I think on the whole, we've done very well. There's of course always more that can be done, but I don't think that we can overcome racism by starting from a premise that is actually false, and that is, you know, saying Britain's a racist society. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, and what I found interesting about some of those marches is there seemed to be a lot of socialist banners there. They were also saying things like, you know, Boris Johnson's racist, Winston Churchill's racist, let's smash up the statue, etc. What's your look on this sort of the far left element to what we've seen here? We've obviously heard about the bringing down capitalism, abolishing the police. What's your view in terms of the far left aspect of this story?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And that's actually kind of related to my previous point. That's why I'm very reluctant to basically concede very much, because I know, and I've seen it already, and many people have, that actually this whole racism narrative is really being exploited to push forward a completely different agenda. What does overthrowing capitalism, you know, dismantling the nuclear family, all of these things have to do with, you know, knife crime, you know, in London, or kind of, you know, fatherlessness that are affecting many Black communities? None of these things are related. And to me, this is actually really weaponizing people's goodwill and guilt to essentially have a power grab. And for me, that's not acceptable. Most of us completely oppose racism, but we don't have to support this particular, very specific form of anti-racist activism to oppose racism.
Yeah, no, in my personal experience, I mean, I grew up friends from all different backgrounds, and something I've always found about society is that the older I grew, the more we were almost told that no, this is something that really matters and that you're different, but on the basis of which I always thought was a very divisive message coming out of our society. You know, I think most decent ordinary Brits want to live in a country where we get along together, people can earn a living, and they can live in a safe country. And so when you see terms thrown around readily now, like, you know, BAME people, I mean, this is sort of ludicrous language, you know, but how do we counteract this? Because it really has taken a hold. You know, these large groupings of people in the language has become part and parcel, really, of our society. And I think it's divisive. What do you think we need to do to move forward and have a more cohesive, united society in future?
So first, I say I completely agree with you. You know, what has been really unfortunate is to kind of the framing of kind of Black people's interests are somehow different to other people's. That's not true. All people in this country just want to get along, want to have a good life, you know, raise their family, all of these things. What our common interests are far, far, far more outweighing of what divides us. And I think that's a really important message. So I think that's one of the ways that we challenge this. First, we need to emphasize what unites us, not what divides us. I think that speaks to a common humanity that we can all get behind. I think that we have to be much more forthright in pushing against it. You know, I think understandably people are scared to be called racist and this, that, and the other, but actually what's happening is threatening race relations. So if we care about social cohesion, we have to be able to take that risk and say, no, I oppose racism, but I absolutely don't support your beliefs, and that your beliefs are actually very negative and I don't agree with it. And I think we have to hold many of the political leaders to account. I mean, we saw Winston Churchill having to be boarded up, you know, complete lawlessness. You know, if we can't even basically rely on law and order and the police to do their job, then we're in a very worrying trend. And so for me, I think that we have to demand much more from the police, the institutions, in not capitulating to the first extreme activist movement that comes about. That's really how I push against it, and supporting the Econo Project.
Absolutely. No, one of the things I've picked up on is it seems to be a trait as well that you get some of these far left commentators who now seem to make a living out of basically, as I said, talking about how this country should be ashamed of its past, how it's racist, how there's nothing good about it. How representative do you think some of these people are? Because they do sort of put themselves forward as the voice of the person on the street. And I've always found that actually these people represent quite a niche view. If you look, example, at how many people support, you know, mobs being allowed to run around and pull down statues that they don't like, it's, you know, less than 15% of the population, and yet these people go on and act like it's the mainstream view. How representative do you think they are of the British public overall?
Well, this is one of the reasons why I literally felt almost a moral obligation to get involved in the debate. I've never really spoken about race. I've spoken about free speech, Brexit. These are the things I'm interested in. But obviously, as a woman of African heritage myself, I was horrified to see all of these people claiming to speak for me. And that's one of the reasons, again, why I started the Econo Project, because I wanted to bring together people that are ethnic minority, but also obviously, you know, white people as well, who don't have this very one specific view and actually very much challenge what's going on. I don't actually think that they're representative. Many polls have shown that actually Black African people and Black Caribbean people have very high confidence in British democracy, very high confidence in the police, these types of things. So I think that, again, they're exploiting the situation that happened in America 3,000 miles away and trying to use it as a kind of power grab and saying that they speak for all people. They do not. All they speak for is their very specific niche group. And yeah, we need to challenge it.
Absolutely. And just finally, I mean, you know, voices like yours and others that are stepping up now with the Econo Project, what's your sort of goal over the next year, the next few years, in terms of what you would like to achieve with the Econo Project?
Well, first and foremost, again, I want to really raise the level of debate. I think, you know, we can't even have a conversation now without insults, trying to get people cancelled, censoring people. You know, we're seeing people trying to get people fired just for expressing an opinion. I want to have this platform where people can speak openly, frankly, and speak the truth. So that's the first thing, a platform to be able to speak truth on this matter. And two, hopefully from that environment of a space that's open to discuss these issues, can we then create genuine solutions to many of these very real issues, you know, whether that's inequality, not just based off of race. You know, when many people have spoken about how white working class boys are actually, you know, struggling educationally in this country. So I think that there are many issues facing many different people. And I think we can only really solve them if we're able to have a conversation that's honest and frank. So first, meaningful conversations, and next, meaningful solutions, and hopefully start to actually completely move the conversation forward and get some positive change in this country.
Well, Inaya, if you want a positive conversation, you're always welcome on this show. I hope we can talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.